Overnight, Iranian state media confirmed the death of the security chief Ali Larijani, considered one of the most powerful figures in Iran. Now, the regime has vowed to retaliate. Shahram Akbadzadeh is the director of the Middle East Studies Forum at Deakin University and joins me now. Welcome to the program.
Thanks for having me, PK.
If you look at a diagram, as I have, of the Iranian leadership, there are very few at the top actually left, and this particular figure was long rumoured to be running the country in effect since last year. So how significant is his death?
Well, it's significant in the sense that Ali Larijani has been with the regime from day one. He has risen through the ranks. He has proven his mettle by serving as the Secretary of the Supreme National Security for a stint. In fact, he was retiring until the last June attack brought him back into a position of leadership. So he was significant, but having him eliminated like that, as the US has been trying to do, decapitating the regime, has not resulted in the expected regime fall. The regime has not folded. It's managed to maintain power, it managed to be resilient and find replacements to fill in the gaps.
So what now do you think is the future of the regime? If we've seen now the removal and, you know, the removal of key figures of the regime because of these strikes from the US and Israel, what kind of direction will the regime take? Are there people who will just fulfill those roles?
I think this attack on Iran is going to be very counterproductive for the United States and Israel. The idea was regime collapse. The idea was that the Islamic Republic would fold under international, under bombardment. The reality has been that the vacant positions have been filled, that the regime has not folded, but it has evolved. And it has evolved to be a lot more hardline and a lot more uncompromising towards the United States. So Larijani, for example, would have been someone who had a pragmatic experience with the West. He would have been someone who could perhaps sign a deal or find some kind of compromise with the United States after the war had finished. People who replace him are likely to be a lot more hardline, a lot more intolerant of the United States. So I think this strike, the attack on Iran, has been quite counterproductive for the United States and Israel.
There's a debate, of course, within the US, well, among everyone in the world really, about whether the US should stay and complete a sort of deeper mission or withdraw. How much longer would it need to actually stay to do something meaningful, which could potentially lead to the regime falling?
Well, that's $1 million question. I don't know if anyone has the answer to that question. But the irony is that President Trump promised that he would extract the United States from never-ending wars, and now he's just started a whole new war with no end in sight. There is no off-ramp to end the war. And I think to a large extent, he did this because he was following the lead of Prime Minister Netanyahu of Israel. Israel has a very clear agenda in relation to Iran. Israel wants to see regime fall in Iran. That's why they're pursuing this. And that fall, even if that means disintegration of the country, even if it means anarchy in Iran, that's what the Israeli agenda is. And President Trump has simply followed that agenda, not knowing how to end it.
You say he's followed the agenda, but there are different views and different statements that have been made by the US and Trump himself about, you know, how this came about. If the US were to withdraw, it looks likely that Israel would continue in targeted attacks. How long do you think that is feasible without the United States bolstering that project?
Well, Israel knew that it did not have the capacity to prosecute this war by itself. That is why Netanyahu pressured Trump to enter the war and side with it. And in fact, Secretary of State Marco Rubio said so as much when he fronted the US Congress, saying Israel told us we're going to go to war. We knew that Iran would see this as an act of war also by the United States. So rather than waiting for Iranians to attack us, we attack them. So it's very clear that the US has followed Israel lead into the war. If the United States decides to stop the aerial bombardment, Israel will have to follow. Israel does not have the capacity to prosecute the war by itself.
And internally in Iran, of course, there's been a lot of people displacement. The regime, there's different views about how the regime is now going. And many have been surprised by how resilient the regime has been. Are you surprised?
I'm not surprised at all. We knew that the regime would not fall just because the supreme leader is eliminated or top leadership is eliminated. The regime in Iran is very unpopular. That goes without saying. We saw it in January, where the regime used brute force to suppress dissent. But at the moment, under bombardment, the fact that Israel has been hitting and US has been hitting UNESCO protected heritage sites in Iran, the fact that Trump and Netanyahu are happy to talk about disintegration of the country by encouraging secessionist movements, I think the political tide has turned, and at the moment, this Iranian patriotism has resurfaced, which really helps the Islamic Republic of Iran. The ruling regime is benefiting from this strike.
Shahram, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.